Stop walking past the produce section and dropping $4 on a bag of carrots that were pulled out of the ground 6 weeks ago and shipped halfway across the country. What if I told you that the freshest, most nutrient-dense root vegetables you will ever taste in your entire life are not hiding behind a locked garden gate or buried under acres of farmland? They are waiting to grow for you right now, in a pot, on your patio, your back porch, or even a sunny driveway corner. If you have ever written off root vegetables for containers because someone told you they need deep, open ground, you have been lied to. All you need is the right container, the right technique, and the right plant to build yourself a year-round underground harvest machine that sits 2 feet from your back door. Today, I am going to reveal the ultimate list of 15 root vegetables perfectly engineered for container growing. 15 crops, 15 harvests, pulled straight from your own pots, 15 flavors so explosively fresh they will permanently ruin your opinion of anything from a grocery store shelf. All perfectly tailored to transform your patio into a thriving, productive underground garden that feeds you season after season. Let's get into it. Number 15. Daikon radish. Kicking off our container root garden at number 15 is the absolutely colossal daikon radish. While standard grocery store radishes top out at a couple of inches, this Japanese giant grows a single snow-white taproot that can stretch 18 inches long and weigh over 2 pounds. And it grows it fast. This is not a decoration. This is a serious food crop hiding in plain sight. And it thrives spectacularly in a container when you give it exactly what it demands. Because this root needs to drive straight down without hitting a wall, you absolutely must use a deep, narrow 5-gallon bucket or a tall 12-inch diameter fabric grow bag with a minimum depth of 14 inches. A standard shallow pot will cause the root to fork, curl, and contort into something completely unusable. The depth is non-negotiable. Fill your container with a loose, light, highly aerated mix of 50% quality potting soil and 50% coarse horticultural sand. You must avoid any chunky bark chips or gravel pieces in the root zone. Any physical obstruction the root encounters will force it to fork and split, ruining the harvest. Do not purchase transplants. Sow daikon seeds directly into the container, pushing 3 seeds about ½ an inch deep into the center of the pot. Once they sprout, you must thin aggressively down to just a single seedling. 2 plants competing in 1 pot will strangle each other underground. Place the container in a location receiving at least 6 hours of direct sun daily. Daikon actually prefers the mild warmth of spring and the cooling temperatures of early fall. Avoid starting it in the brutal heat of July, as the root turns pithy and hollow in heat above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Watering must be consistent and deep, but never excessive. You must push moisture down to the very bottom of the container to encourage the root to chase it downward. Shallow watering trains the root to stay near the surface, producing a stubby, poorly formed vegetable. Water when the top inch of soil dries out, soaking the entire depth each time. Apply a single dose of low nitrogen, high phosphorus fertilizer at planting, and then leave it completely alone. Excess nitrogen causes the daikon to throw all its energy into enormous leafy tops while producing a disappointingly thin, weak root underground. The harvest arrives remarkably fast, in just 45 to 70 days from seeding. You will know the daikon is ready when the thick white shoulder of the root visibly pushes up above the soil line. Grip the base of the leaves firmly, wiggle the root gently side to side, and pull straight up in one smooth motion. Slice the fresh root paper thin on a mandolin and quick pickle it with rice vinegar, sugar, and chili flakes. It is also extraordinary when slow braised in savory beef broth. A clinical nutrition study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry confirmed that daikon radish contains extraordinarily high concentrations of the enzyme diastase, which actively breaks down complex starch molecules in the digestive system and significantly reduces bloating after heavy meals. Here is a fascinating fact. In traditional Japanese culture, daikon is considered so sacred that January 7th is officially designated as a national holiday to eat a specific 7-herb rice porridge. Daikon is one of the mandatory 7 herbs, and eating it on that exact morning is believed to ward off illness for the entire coming year. Number 14. Turnip. At number 14 is the spectacular and deeply underestimated turnip. Most American home gardeners have completely ignored this vegetable for the past generation, written off as a dusty wartime ration that belongs in a history book. That is a catastrophic mistake. A freshly harvested turnip, pulled from your own container and eaten within hours of being out of the ground, is a completely different food from what you find waxed and sitting in a grocery bin. Because turnip roots grow wide and round rather than long and narrow, you do not need extreme depth. You need width. Select a wide, shallow container. A 12 to 15-inch diameter pot that is at least 8 inches deep will comfortably produce 3 turnips simultaneously. A wide, rectangular window, box-style planter that is 18 inches long works brilliantly as well. Fill the container with a rich, slightly sandy potting mix, amended with a generous handful of aged compost. Turnips are not as demanding about soil as other root crops, but they absolutely despise any soil that stays wet. Ensure your container has multiple drainage holes and never let it sit in a saucer of standing water. Sow seeds directly, scattering them thinly across the surface and pressing them a 1/4 inch deep. Once the seedlings emerge and reach about 3 inches tall, thin them to one plant every 4 to 5 inches. The thinned seedlings are entirely edible and taste like a mild, tender mustard green. Do not throw them away. Place the container in full direct sunlight. Like daikon, turnips bolt and turn bitter in heat above 80 degrees, making them the absolute champions of your spring garden in March through May, and again in your fall garden from August through October. Water consistently, keeping the soil evenly moist throughout the growing season. Irregular watering, where the soil swings from soaking wet to bone dry, causes the root to crack and split, rendering it tough and woody at the core. Feed once with a balanced organic granular fertilizer at planting. Do not over-fertilize, or you will get lush green tops and stunted roots. The harvest arrives in just 40 to 60 days, making turnips one of the fastest root crops on this entire list. Harvest when the root is between 2 and 3 inches in diameter. Left longer, they turn pithy. Roast them whole with olive oil and fresh rosemary until the edges caramelize into a deep golden bronze. Or cube them raw into a creamy potato-style gratin. A peer-reviewed nutritional analysis published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis confirmed that turnip greens, the leaves attached to the very root you grow in your pot, contain higher concentrations of bone-strengthening calcium and vitamin K than a comparable serving of whole milk. Here is a fascinating fact. During the brutal winter of 1916 in Germany, a critical wartime food shortage became known historically as the turnip winter. With grain and potato supplies completely cut off by Allied blockades, the German civilian population survived almost exclusively on turnips for over 6 months, making the turnip one of the only vegetables in history to be directly credited with keeping an entire nation alive. Number 13. Beet. Sliding into number 13 is the magnificent beet, a vegetable so extraordinarily nutritious that elite endurance athletes now consume it as a legal, natural performance enhancer before competition. But beyond its science-backed health power, a freshly grown beet pulled from your own patio container is one of the most visually stunning vegetables you will ever hold in your hand. Deep crimson, golden yellow, or candy cane striped varieties transform a simple container into a backyard spectacle. Because beet roots grow wide and bulbous rather than deep, a container that is 12 inches wide and at least 10 inches deep is the absolute minimum requirement. A 5-gallon wide fabric grow bag accommodates a generous planting of 4 to 5 plants simultaneously. Fill the container with a highly amended, deeply loose, mildly acidic potting mix with a pH between 6.0 and 7.0. Critically, beets are extraordinarily sensitive to boron deficiency in the soil. Mix in a tiny pinch of borax, and I mean a literal tiny pinch, roughly a quarter teaspoon per 5 gallons of soil, to prevent the roots from developing hard, dead black spots at their core. Beet seeds are actually seed clusters. Each pellet you plant contains 2 to 4 individual seeds fused together. Every cluster must be thinned to a single seedling after germination. Skipping this step is one of the most common mistakes container gardeners make, resulting in a tangled mess of stunted roots underground. Place your container in full direct sun. Unlike turnips and daikon, beets tolerate moderate summer heat better and produce spectacular harvests in both spring and fall. Water deeply and consistently. Irregular moisture is the #1 cause of beet roots cracking and turning woody. Once a week, deep watering is far superior to shallow daily misting that never penetrates the full depth of the root zone. Apply a low-nitrogen liquid fertilizer at the halfway point of the growing season to fuel root development without triggering excessive leafy growth. Harvest in 50 to 70 days when the shoulder of the beet is visible above the soil and has reached roughly the size of a golf ball to a tennis ball. Twist the greens off rather than cutting them to prevent the root from bleeding out. Roast the whole beets wrapped in foil with a drizzle of balsamic vinegar. Or slice them thin and serve raw with crumbled goat cheese and walnuts on an elegant summer salad. And do not discard those attached green tops. They are completely edible and pack a remarkable nutritional punch of their own. A landmark clinical study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics confirmed that beet roots contain extraordinarily high concentrations of dietary nitrates that the human body converts directly into nitric oxide, a compound proven to dilate blood vessels, significantly lower blood pressure, and dramatically improve cardiovascular endurance. Here is a fascinating fact. The intense crimson pigment in red beets, called beta-cyanin, is so extraordinarily powerful that the human digestive system cannot fully break it down. In roughly 10 to 15% of the population, a condition called beeturia causes the pigment to pass straight through, turning urine and stools a vivid red or pink color. If you forget you ate beets the night before, this can trigger a genuinely terrifying medical panic. Number 12. Kohlrabi. At number 12, we have the kohlrabi, one of the strangest-looking vegetables you will ever grow in a container, and without question, one of the most rewarding. If you have never grown kohlrabi before, nothing in your gardening experience has quite prepared you for the moment the swollen alien green stem globe emerges from the soil on stilt-like legs, looking like something out of a science fiction film. But cut into it, and you find crisp, mild, water chestnut sweet flesh that tastes like the finest part of a broccoli stem. Kohlrabi is technically not a true root vegetable. Its edible globe forms above the soil line, making it one of the most container-friendly crops on this entire list because it requires absolutely zero depth. A standard 6 to 8 inch deep pot is completely sufficient. A wide rectangular 10-gallon planter can accommodate 4 to 5 kohlrabi plants simultaneously. Fill the container with a rich, well-draining standard potting mix, heavily amended with aged compost. Kohlrabi is a heavy feeder and requires fertile soil to develop its bulb at full speed. Sow seeds directly or purchase transplants from a nursery. Transplants in a container give you a 3-week head start, which matters enormously in early spring when the clock is ticking before summer heat arrives. Place the container in full direct sun, at least 6 hours daily. Water consistently, maintaining even soil moisture throughout the growing season. As with most brassicas, irregular watering causes the globe to crack and develop a pithy, hollow center. Apply a nitrogen-rich liquid fertilizer every 3 weeks during the early growth phase to fuel rapid leafy development, then switch to a balanced formula once the globe begins to swell. The harvest arrives in just 45 to 60 days, making this one of the absolute fastest producers on this list. Harvest when the globe reaches the size of a tennis ball, larger than a baseball, and it turns woody and unpleasant. Peel it, slice it into thin matchsticks, and toss it raw in a tangy apple cider vinegar slaw, or cube it and roast it with butter and smoked paprika until the edges char into something extraordinary. A comprehensive nutritional profile published by the USDA Agricultural Research Service confirmed that kohlrabi contains extraordinarily high levels of glucosinolates, sulfur-based compounds that the human body converts into sulforaphane, one of the most heavily studied natural compounds in cancer prevention research. Here is a fascinating fact. Despite looking like something from another planet, kohlrabi belongs to the exact same botanical species as broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts. Every single one of those wildly different-looking vegetables is a human-engineered cultivar of the same ancestral wild plant, Brassica oleracea, selectively bred over thousands of years to emphasize a different part of the plant's anatomy. Number 11. Parsnip. Breaking into the top half of our list at number 11 is the parsnip, the crown jewel of cold-weather root vegetables and one of the most profoundly underused crops in the American home garden. A parsnip roasted from your own container, pulled after the first hard frost has converted its starches into pure sugar, is a completely different food from anything you will encounter in a store. It caramelizes in the oven like candy, develops a deep, nutty sweetness, and fills your kitchen with a perfume that is halfway between vanilla and fresh bread. The parsnip's single greatest demand, and the reason most gardeners believe it cannot be grown in containers, is its extraordinary root depth. A mature parsnip drives 12 to 18 inches straight down into the earth. You must honor this requirement absolutely. Select a deep 5-gallon bucket or a tall grow bag with a minimum depth of 15 inches. There is no shortcut here. Fill the container with the loosest, most stone-free, finely sifted potting mix you can assemble. Mix standard potting soil with a generous portion of horticultural sand and a handful of perlite for aeration. Any clump, rock, or compacted layer the growing tip encounters will cause the root to fork catastrophically. Always sow fresh parsnip seeds directly into the final container. Parsnip seeds lose their viability extraordinarily quickly. Seeds more than 1 year old may fail to germinate entirely. Purchase fresh seed every single season without exception. Place the container in full sun. Water consistently and deeply, ensuring moisture reaches the absolute bottom of the container at every watering. Parsnips demand patience that most vegetable gardeners are completely unprepared for. From seeding to harvest takes 100 to 120 days, but the transformation that happens after the first frost makes every single day worth the wait. The cold converts stored starches directly into sugars, creating a sweetness no summer vegetable can match. Harvest in late autumn by grasping the base of the leaves and pulling straight up while rocking gently. Roast the long ivory roots whole with a brush of pure maple syrup and cracked black pepper. The exterior will blister and caramelize into something that looks, smells, and tastes like a luxury restaurant dish. Research published by the University of Illinois Extension confirmed that parsnips contain significant quantities of falcarinol, a natural bioactive compound that clinical laboratory studies have demonstrated possesses powerful anti-tumor properties in isolated cell cultures, making it one of the most nutritionally compelling root crops in the garden. Here is a fascinating fact. In colonial America and throughout early European history, before the arrival of the potato from South America, the parsnip was the primary, starchy staple root vegetable of the entire Western world. It filled the exact role the potato fills today. Every stew, every winter soup, every celebratory feast was built around parsnips. The potato's arrival so completely devastated the parsnip's cultural importance that most Americans today could not pick one out of a lineup. Mid-list engagement prompt. Have you ever pulled a parsnip out of your own container after a hard frost and tasted how sweet it gets? Tell me your experience down in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you are finding this list genuinely useful, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the channel. We have got 8 more incredible root crops coming, and you do not want to miss a single one. Let's keep going. Number 10. Celeriac. At number 10 is celeriac, also called celery root, and it is the most intimidating looking vegetable on this entire list. It grows as a gnarled, rough-skinned, irregular brown globe that looks like something dug out of an ancient bog. But peel away that rough exterior and you find creamy white flesh with the deep, rich, concentrated celery flavor of something that took 3 months to develop underground, without a trace of the stringy toughness that ruins raw celery stalks, because celeriac develops a broad, shallow root ball rather than a deep taproot. A wide 10 to 12-inch container that is at least 8 inches deep is the ideal match. A single plant per container produces the best results, as this crop competes aggressively for moisture and nutrients. Fill the container with an incredibly rich, moisture-retaining potting mix, heavily amended with aged compost, and a small dose of slow-release organic fertilizer worked in before planting. Celeriac is one of the hungriest and thirstiest root vegetables on this list. Starve it of water or nutrients for even 1 week and the root stops developing, leaving you with a hard, disappointing golf ball-sized knob at harvest. Because celeriac seeds are tiny and slow to germinate, start them indoors 10 to 12 weeks before your last frost date. Then transplant the seedlings into your container once nighttime temperatures reliably stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the container in full, direct sun. Water deeply every 2 to 3 days during summer heat, never allowing the soil to dry out more than 1 inch deep. Apply a balanced liquid fertilizer every 2 weeks throughout the growing season without interruption. The harvest arrives in 100 to 120 days from transplanting. You know celeriac is ready when the globe at the soil line measures 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and the skin has turned from pale green to a light tan brown. Twist off any side shoots that develop throughout the season. Leaving them diverts energy away from the main globe. Peel the root aggressively, removing the rough skin and all surface channels. Then slice it thin and simmer it into a silky cream-based soup that will absolutely stop your dinner guests mid-conversation. A detailed clinical review published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology documented that celeriac contains high concentrations of phthalides, naturally occurring compounds proven to significantly relax arterial smooth muscle tissue, producing a measurable and consistent blood pressure lowering effect in clinical subjects. Here is a fascinating fact. Celeriac has appeared on the menu of the most exclusive restaurants in the world, including 3 Michelin star establishments, not as a novelty, but as the centerpiece of signature dishes. In high-end European cuisine, a perfectly prepared celeriac remoulade is considered such a refined test of culinary technique that it is used as a benchmark dish in professional chef training programs. Number 9. Radish. At number 9 is the humble radish. And before you roll your eyes, hear me out completely. Because what most American home gardeners think of when they hear the word radish is the small, sharp, slightly peppery red ball they slice into salads and largely ignore. What this list is talking about is deploying the radish as a strategic container gardening weapon, a crop so fast, so productive, and so utterly effortless to grow in pots that it becomes the engine that keeps your container garden producing during every gap between slower crops. The standard red cherry bell radish reaches full harvest size in an astonishing 22 to 28 days from seeding, making it the fastest food crop you can grow in any container, period. A wide 6-inch deep pot, a window box, even a repurposed wooden crate, any container with basic drainage and at least 6 inches of loose soil will grow radishes successfully. Fill the container with a light, sandy, fast-draining potting mix. Radishes thrive in poor to moderately fertile soil. Rich, heavily composted soil causes the plants to bolt to seed before the root has a chance to develop properly. Sow seeds directly, spacing them 2 inches apart across the surface and pressing them a 1/4 inch deep, thin to 1 plant per 2-inch space after germination. Overcrowding is the primary reason container radishes produce all tops and no root. Full sun is preferred, but radishes are one of the few root vegetables that tolerate light shade, making them one of the most flexible crops on this list for patios with less than perfect sun exposure. Water consistently and evenly. The single most important rule for perfect radishes is this: irregular watering causes the root to crack violently down the center, making it completely unusable. Water daily during dry weather, keeping the soil just barely moist at all times. No fertilizer required. In fact, fertilizing radishes is actively counterproductive and will cause them to bolt. Harvest at 22 to 28 days, the moment the root reaches about the size of a large marble. Left in the soil even 1 week too long, the root turns pithy, hollow, and blazingly hot. Eat them raw, with sweet butter and flaky sea salt, the French way and the finest way, or pickle them in seasoned rice vinegar, for a condiment that pairs with almost everything. A nutrition study published in the European Journal of Nutrition confirmed that red radishes contain concentrated levels of anthocyanins and isothiocyanates, 2 classes of bioactive compounds demonstrated to support liver detoxification pathways and protect hepatic cells from oxidative damage. Here is a fascinating fact. In Oaxaca, Mexico, December 23rd, is celebrated as Noche de Rabanos, Night of the Radishes, an official state-recognized festival in which local artisans spend weeks carving massive radishes, some growing to 3 pounds, into elaborate nativity scenes, historical dioramas, and folkloric figures. The carved radish sculptures are then displayed competitively, and tens of thousands of people travel to the city specifically to witness them before they wilt and disintegrate by midnight. Number 8. Sweet potato. At number 8 is the sweet potato, and this is where container root gardening gets genuinely extraordinary. Most people cannot imagine growing sweet potatoes anywhere except a large garden bed with deep, loose, sandy soil stretching in every direction. The idea of doing it in a container seems completely impractical. It is not. It is one of the most satisfying, abundant, and visually spectacular container crops you will ever attempt. Because sweet potato vines sprawl aggressively and the tubers develop from the vine's underground nodes, you absolutely must use a very wide, very spacious container. A 20-gallon fabric grow bag is the non-negotiable minimum. The breathable walls of the fabric bag are critical. They prevent the roots from circling the container and keep the soil at a steady temperature during the blazing summer heat. Fill the bag with an exceptionally light, loose, fast-draining mix of 50% potting soil, 30% coarse sand, and 20% perlite. Sweet potatoes rot instantly in heavy, waterlogged soil. Drainage is not optional. It is the single most critical factor in this entire grow. Do not plant seeds. Purchase rooted slips, small vine cuttings with attached root nodes from a certified nursery or a reputable online source. Plant 2 slips per 20-gallon bag, burying the rooted node and the lower 3 inches of stem beneath the surface. Place the container in the most blistering, sun-drenched, heat-soaked corner of your patio. Sweet potatoes are tropical plants. They crave heat the way most vegetables crave water. A dark-colored container placed against a south-facing brick wall that absorbs and radiates heat all day long is the absolute ideal setup. Water deeply every 3 days during the peak summer heat. Between waterings, allow the top 2 inches of soil to dry out completely. Sweet potatoes grown in consistently moist soil develop beautiful vines and 0 tubers. Apply a low nitrogen, high potassium granular fertilizer at planting and once again at the midpoint of the season. Excess nitrogen produces a magnificent jungle of trailing vines and a deeply disappointing absence of potatoes underground. The harvest arrives in 90 to 120 days. Announced by the vines yellowing and beginning to die back in early autumn. Tip the entire grow bag onto a tarp and dig through the soil by hand. The moment your fingers find the first tuber buried in the loose mix and pull it free, warm and dusty from the soil, is one of the most purely satisfying moments in container gardening. Roast the tubers whole until the skin blisters and the flesh collapses into a silky, honey-sweet custard. Slice them in half and top with a compound butter of browned butter, cinnamon, and a pinch of smoked salt. This is the finest thing your patio will ever produce. A comprehensive nutritional review published by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health identified sweet potatoes as one of the single most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, providing a full day's supply of vitamin A from a single medium tuber, along with extraordinary concentrations of vitamin C, potassium, manganese, and dietary fiber that significantly stabilizes blood sugar response. Here is a fascinating fact. NASA's Advanced Space Agriculture Research Program has formally identified the sweet potato as one of the primary candidate crops for long-duration deep space missions and potential Mars colonization, specifically because a single plant produces more caloric and nutritional yield per square foot of growing space than almost any other food crop currently known to modern agriculture. Number 7. Ginger. At number 7 is fresh ginger, and growing your own in a container changes your relationship with this ingredient permanently. The moment you harvest your first knob of ginger from your own pot, snap a piece off and hold it under your nose to smell the explosive, intense, floral citrus pepper fragrance of truly fresh ginger root, you will never again be satisfied with the sad, dry, fibrous root that has been sitting in cold storage since before Thanksgiving. Ginger is a tropical rhizome that grows entirely underground as a thick, knobbly horizontal root mass. Because it spreads wide and shallow rather than deep, you must select a wide, shallow container. A 12 to 15-inch wide pot that is only 8 to 10 inches deep is the absolute ideal. A long rectangular planter that is 18 inches wide and 8 inches deep produces an abundant harvest from a single rhizome piece. Fill the container with a rich, moist, slightly acidic potting mix amended heavily with aged compost. Ginger thrives in organic matter-rich soil that stays consistently moist without becoming waterlogged. Mix in a generous handful of cocoa coir to help the soil retain moisture evenly between waterings. Do not buy ginger from a grocery store to plant. It is almost always treated with growth inhibitors. Purchase certified organic, untreated seed rhizomes from a garden supplier. Soak them in warm water overnight before planting and press them horizontally just 1 inch below the soil surface with the growth buds pointing upward. This is a critical distinction from every other plant on this list. Ginger despises direct sunlight. Place the container in bright, indirect light or filtered morning sun only. A porch that receives direct sun until 10 a.m. and dappled shade for the rest of the day is the absolute perfect ginger environment. Full afternoon sun will scorch the leaves and permanently stunt the rhizome underground. Water consistently, maintaining even moisture throughout the growing season. Never allow the soil to dry out completely between waterings. Fertilize monthly with a balanced organic liquid fertilizer from spring through late summer, then stop completely in early fall as the plant prepares to go dormant. The harvest arrives in 8 to 10 months from planting, in late autumn when the leaves yellow and begin to die back. Tip the entire container and dig through the soil by hand, following the spreading rhizome network outward from the original planting point. Reserve several healthy buds from the harvested rhizome and store them to replant in spring. Grate the fresh root directly into a boiling cup of water with raw honey and lemon for the finest cup of ginger tea you have ever tasted, or mince it finely into a marinade for grilled salmon that will leave your guests demanding the recipe. A rigorous clinical meta-analysis published in the journal Pain Medicine synthesized the results of multiple randomized controlled trials and confirmed that the bioactive compound gingerol, present in extraordinarily high concentrations in fresh ginger root, demonstrates a statistically significant, measurable reduction in chronic joint pain and arthritic inflammation, comparable in effect to standard over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications without gastrointestinal side effects. Here is a fascinating fact. In medieval Europe, ginger was so extraordinarily valuable, imported from Southeast Asia along the Silk Road at enormous expense, that a single pound of ginger root was legally equivalent in trade value to a live sheep. It was used as direct currency, offered as payment for taxes, and featured prominently in the wills of wealthy merchants as a prized asset to be inherited by the next generation. Number 6. Turmeric. Sliding into the top 5 at number 6 is turmeric, the golden root that has moved from the spice aisle into the medical journals of some of the most respected research institutions in the world. Growing your own turmeric in a container gives you access to a supply of fresh, living rhizomes that contain dramatically higher concentrations of the active compounds than any dried powder you will ever purchase from a store shelf. Turmeric and ginger are botanical cousins, and they share almost identical growing requirements. Use the same wide, shallow container, a 12 to 15-inch wide pot, 8 to 10 inches deep. They can even be planted together in a larger 15-gallon wide planter for a spectacular tropical display. Fill the container with the same rich, moisture-retentive potting mix you would use for ginger, heavily amended with aged compost and cocoa coir, slightly acidic, never waterlogged. Purchase certified organic, untreated turmeric rhizomes from a garden supplier or a reliable online nursery. Plant them horizontally 2 inches below the surface, growth buds facing upward in early spring after all frost danger has passed. Like ginger, turmeric is a shade-preferring tropical plant. Bright indirect light or filtered morning sun only. Never harsh, direct midday sun. It thrives in the warmth of summer, even in the shade of a porch or a larger container plant. Water consistently and generously throughout the growing season. This crop will not tolerate drought. Feed monthly with a balanced organic fertilizer until late summer. Then reduce watering and stop fertilizing as the leaves begin to yellow in early fall. Harvest in 8 to 10 months after the first frost kills the leaves back completely. Dig the container gently and pull up the dense, heavily branched rhizome network. The interior flesh is a startling, brilliant, almost neon orange. Grate the fresh root into golden milk with coconut milk, black pepper, and raw honey. The black pepper is not optional. It contains piperine, which increases the body's absorption of turmeric's active compound by a staggering 2,000%. A landmark clinical review published in the journal Advances in Experimental Medicine and Biology comprehensively summarized decades of research confirming that curcumin, the primary bioactive compound concentrated in turmeric rhizome, possesses scientifically validated anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and neuroprotective properties, with ongoing clinical trials examining its potential role in slowing the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Here is a fascinating fact. Fresh turmeric contains such an extraordinarily intense, penetrating natural dye that it was used for centuries to color the sacred robes of Buddhist monks. The specific shade of orange-yellow seen in traditional monks' robes across Southeast Asia, called saffron in common reference, was historically achieved almost exclusively through turmeric, not actual saffron, which was far too expensive even for religious institutions. Which one of these root crops surprised you most, and which one are you absolutely planting first? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We are heading into the top 5, and the last plant on this list is something that most American gardeners have never considered growing in a pot, but produces one of the most impressive harvests you will ever pull from a container. Do not click away. Let's go. Number 5. Horseradish. Taking the number 5 spot is horseradish, the most aggressively powerful, fiercely flavored root on this entire list, and the one crop that actually becomes infinitely more manageable when you grow it in a container rather than in the open ground. In a traditional garden bed, horseradish is an invasive nightmare. Every fragment of root left in the soil sprouts a new plant. It spreads underground in every direction, and within 2 seasons, it has completely claimed territory you never intended to give it. A container stops that immediately and completely. You control it, you contain it, and it rewards you abundantly for that structure. Because horseradish drives a thick, aggressive taproot straight down while spreading lateral roots outward, you absolutely must use a tall, wide container, a 15 to 20 gallon half barrel, or an extra deep 5-gallon bucket that is at least 14 inches deep. Restricting the root to a shallow pot stunts the taproot and drastically reduces your harvest weight. Fill the container with a deeply loose, highly aerated mix of potting soil and coarse sand. The horseradish root must be able to push downward without resistance. Compact, heavy soil produces a twisted, forked root that is extremely difficult to harvest cleanly. Plant a single root cutting, called a thong, purchased from a certified nursery or specialty online supplier. Lay the cutting horizontally 3 to 4 inches below the surface in early spring and let the plant do the rest entirely on its own. Place the container in full, direct sunlight. Horseradish tolerates more sun and heat than most root vegetables. Water consistently during the summer, keeping the soil evenly moist. As autumn arrives and temperatures drop, water less frequently. The plant's massive, dramatic green leaves die back naturally with the first frost, and that is your harvest signal. After the first frost concentrates the sugars and sharpens the heat of the root. Tip the container onto a tarp and pull out the main taproot. The harvest is remarkable, a thick, ivory white root that smells of absolutely nothing until the moment you peel and grate it, at which point it detonates into a sinus-clearing, eye-watering heat that makes commercial prepared horseradish taste like mild salad dressing. Grate the fresh root with white wine vinegar and a pinch of salt for the finest cocktail sauce base you have ever made, or blend it with sour cream for a fiery compound sauce that transforms a backyard rib roast into a restaurant-quality centerpiece. Reserve a 2-inch piece of the lateral root, drop it back into the freshly repacked container soil, and the plant will return every single spring without any additional effort on your part. This is a permanent, self-regenerating food source. A peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry confirmed that the legendary heat of fresh horseradish is produced by a violent enzymatic reaction between glucosinolate compounds and an enzyme called myrosinase, a reaction that only occurs when the root cells are physically crushed and exposed to oxygen. An intact, undamaged horseradish root produces no heat and no aroma whatsoever. Here is a fascinating fact. During the medieval period in Europe, horseradish root was used exclusively as a powerful medicinal drug, not a food. Physicians prescribed it as a treatment for everything from scurvy to joint pain to intestinal parasites. It was not adopted as a culinary ingredient in Western cooking until the 17th century, when German and Eastern European communities began pairing it with roasted meats and cured fish, a tradition that eventually produced the horseradish sauces we know and love today. Number 4. Fennel bulb. At number 4 is fennel, specifically the Florence fennel variety, grown for its spectacular, swollen basal bulb rather than its feathery fronds. This is a vegetable that commands absolute premium prices in farmers' markets and specialty grocery stores year-round, precisely because so few home gardeners attempt it. That fear is completely unwarranted when you grow it in a container on your own terms. Fennel's most notorious gardening reputation is its allelopathic nature. It chemically suppresses the growth of almost every other vegetable planted near it in a garden bed. In a container, this problem is completely eliminated. The chemicals stay contained within the pot's soil, and your other crops are entirely protected. Because fennel develops a deep, anchoring taproot, along with the swelling basal bulb, you must use a tall, narrow container, a deep 5-gallon pot, or a 12-inch diameter grow bag with at least 12 inches of depth. Do not use a wide, shallow planter, or the bulb will press against the container wall and deform. Fill the container with a light, well-draining potting mix amended with a small amount of organic compost. Fennel does not need extremely rich soil. Excessive fertility causes the plant to bolt to flower before the bulb has a chance to swell to full size. Sow seeds directly into the final container in early spring or late summer for a fall harvest. Fennel resents root disturbance and transplants poorly. Thin to a single plant per pot. Place the container in full direct sun. Water consistently, maintaining even moisture throughout the growing season. As the basal bulb begins to swell visibly at the soil line, turning into a tight, pale green to ivory white globe, mound soil up around it to blanch the outer layers and produce a sweeter, more tender texture. Harvest at 80 to 90 days when the bulb reaches the size of a softball. Slice it thin on a mandolin and serve it raw in a salad with shaved parmesan, lemon juice, and good olive oil. Or quarter it and roast it until the outer layers caramelize and the interior turns meltingly soft, sweet, and deeply fragrant with its natural anise perfume. A clinical study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology documented that fennel bulb contains high concentrations of the compound anethyl, a phytoestrogen demonstrated to significantly reduce the frequency and severity of menopausal hot flashes in clinical subjects, making it one of the most relevant vegetables on this entire list for the audience growing it. Here is a fascinating fact. In ancient Rome, fennel was considered so powerful a medicinal plant that Roman gladiators packed fresh fennel fronds into their armor before entering the Colosseum, firmly believing it amplified their physical strength and enhanced their bravery in combat. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder recorded 22 separate medical conditions for which fennel was the prescribed treatment, including failing eyesight, which wild serpents were supposedly observed to cure by rubbing their eyes against fennel plants after shedding their skin. Number 3. Garlic. At number 3 is garlic. The single most essential, most used, most deeply embedded flavor foundation in the entire history of American cooking, and it is also one of the most spectacularly well-suited crops for container growing. A single 5-gallon container of garlic planted in October will deliver you a complete harvest of fat, fragrant, paper-wrapped bulbs the following June that tastes so dramatically superior to anything sold in a supermarket that you will genuinely struggle to go back. Because garlic grows as an individual clove planted upright that develops an underground bulb, the container requirements are beautifully simple. A 6 to 8 inch deep wide pot, a standard 5-gallon bucket with drainage holes drilled in the bottom, or a wide window box. Any container with adequate depth and drainage grows garlic superbly. A single 5-gallon container accommodates 8 to 10 individual cloves planted 4 inches apart. Fill the container with a rich, well-draining potting mix amended generously with aged compost. Garlic is a heavy feeder and requires fertile soil to develop large, full bulbs. Purchase hard-necked garlic varieties for container growing, specifically rocambole or purple stripe types, which produce the most complex, intensely flavored bulbs and are best suited to northern climates. Soft-neck varieties work as well and store far longer after harvest. Do not plant supermarket garlic. It is almost always treated to prevent sprouting and may carry disease. Plant individual cloves, not whole bulbs, with the pointed end upward and the flat basal plate downward, 3 inches deep in early to mid-October. The cloves will develop roots through the fall and winter, then shoot up vigorous green growth in early spring. Place the container in full direct sun. Water very sparingly through the winter, just enough to keep the soil from desiccating completely. As spring arrives and temperatures warm, increase watering frequency to keep the soil consistently moist while the bulb is actively developing underground. In late spring, hardneck garlic sends up a curling green stem called a scape. Cut it off the moment it completes 1 full curl. This forces all the plant's remaining energy underground into the bulb rather than into flower production. Do not waste the scape. It is one of the most prized seasonal ingredients in high-end kitchens, tasting like a mild, sweet garlic with a hint of green onion. Apply a balanced liquid fertilizer in early spring as the green tops emerge, and again 3 weeks later. Stop all fertilizing after June 1st. Harvest in June when the lower 2 to 3 leaves on each plant have turned brown and papery. Dig the bulbs gently using a hand fork, being careful not to slice through the bulbs. Cure them by hanging them in a warm, dry, ventilated location for 3 weeks before bringing them inside for storage. Roast a whole bulb in olive oil until the cloves collapse into a sweet, caramelized paste. Then spread it across crusty bread, or press raw cloves into a compound butter that transforms an ordinary steak into something extraordinary. A major clinical meta-analysis published in the Journal of Nutrition evaluated the collective results of 39 randomized controlled trials and confirmed that organosulfur compounds concentrated in garlic, specifically allicin and its metabolites, demonstrate consistent, statistically significant reductions in systolic blood pressure and total cholesterol levels in hypertensive subjects. Here is a fascinating fact. The powerful aroma that garlic releases when cut or crushed, produced by that same allicin compound, does not exist in an undamaged clove. The raw clove contains odorless precursor compounds that only combine and chemically react into aromatic allicin the instant the cells are physically damaged. This is a deliberate biological defense mechanism evolved to deter insects and soil microbes. And by remarkable coincidence, it produced one of the most beloved flavors in the entire history of human civilization. Number 2. Fingerling potato. The runner-up at number 2 is the fingerling potato, and specifically growing it in containers, using a method that transforms an ordinary patio pot into an almost miraculous underground production machine. Standard white potatoes can absolutely be grown in containers, but fingerling varieties produce significantly higher yields per square foot of growing space, develop more complex and interesting flavors, and look absolutely spectacular when you tip the pot and reveal what has been quietly building beneath the surface all season long. The container method for potatoes is called hilling, and it is what makes the difference between a mediocre harvest and an extraordinary one. Potatoes set their tubers along underground stems called stolons. The more stem you bury, the more stolons develop, and the more potatoes you harvest. You must start with a tall, large, 20-gallon fabric grow bag. The collapsible sides are essential for the technique. Begin by filling it only 6 inches deep with a light, airy mix of 50% potting soil, 30% compost, and 20% perlite. Place 2 to 3 seed potato pieces, certified disease-free, purchased from a nursery, never the grocery store, in the shallow soil with the cut side down and the eyes facing upward. As the plants grow and the green stems reach 8 inches tall, fold the bag walls up and add more soil mixture around the stems, burying them to within 2 inches of the leaf tips. Repeat this hilling process every time the stems grow another 8 inches. By the end of the season, the bag will be standing at its full height with multiple layers of buried stem, each covered in developing tubers. Place the bag in full direct sun. Water deeply and consistently. Potatoes require even uninterrupted moisture during tuber development. Irregular watering produces hollow heart potatoes, tubers with a bizarre hollow cavity at their center. Apply a balanced, slightly phosphorus-heavy fertilizer every 3 weeks throughout the growing season. The harvest arrives in 70 to 90 days from planting, announced when the plants flower, then yellow, then die back completely. At that point, stop watering entirely for 2 weeks to allow the potato skins to set and cure in the ground. Then simply collapse the fabric bag onto a tarp. Dig through the loose soil with your bare hands and pull out every fingerling. The experience of pulling potato after potato from the soil, colors ranging from golden yellow to deep burgundy red to vivid purple, is a harvest moment unlike anything else in the container garden. Halve them lengthwise, toss in olive oil, fresh rosemary, garlic, and sea salt, and roast cut side down on a sheet pan at 425 degrees until the flat sides develop a deep, blistering golden crust. These are not side dish potatoes. They are the entire meal. A comprehensive analysis published by the USDA Agricultural Research Service confirmed that colored fingerling potato varieties, specifically purple and blue flesh types, contain anthocyanin concentrations comparable to blueberries, making them among the most antioxidant-rich, starchy staple crops available to the home gardener. Here is a fascinating fact. A single medium-sized potato, skin included, contains more usable potassium than a banana, a nutritional claim the banana industry has marketed so aggressively for decades that the potato's superior potassium content has become one of the most persistent nutritional myths in American popular culture. The potato also provides more protein per calorie than either rice or pasta, and has sustained entire civilizations through periods of famine that would have otherwise been catastrophic. Number 1. Horseradish, no. The crown goes to number 1, ginseng. Taking the absolute crown at number 1, and I know this is going to surprise every single person watching, is American ginseng, Panax quinquefolius. This is not a vegetable you harvest in a single season. This is a root so extraordinarily powerful, so deeply embedded in both Native American botanical tradition and modern clinical pharmacology that patience is not just required, it is the entire philosophy of growing it. And a container on your patio is not just an acceptable growing environment for American ginseng. For most gardeners across the continental United States, it is actually the optimal one. Because American ginseng requires deep, perfectly drained, highly organic woodland soil and is extraordinarily sensitive to root disturbance and competition, a container lets you engineer the exact environment this plant demands from the ground up, free from the weeds, soil compaction, and competing roots that destroy ginseng plantings in open ground. Select a deep, 5-gallon unglazed terracotta pot. The clay walls breathe, pulling excess moisture away from the root zone. The container must be at least 12 inches deep. American ginseng produces a fleshy, forked taproot that grows slowly and requires significant downward depth to develop its full medicinal quality. Fill the container with a highly specific woodland-inspired potting mix: 40% quality potting soil, 40% leaf mold or composted hardwood bark, and 20% coarse sand. The mix must be loose, deeply organic, and drain rapidly while retaining just enough moisture to keep the fine feeder roots hydrated. The pH must sit between 5.5 and 6.0, mildly acidic, mimicking the forest floor. Purchase stratified American ginseng seeds from a certified native plant nursery. These seeds require a lengthy natural cold stratification period, meaning they will not germinate until they have experienced an extended period of cold, simulating a winter. Stratified seeds purchased in autumn are planted immediately into the container and left outdoors through the winter, germinating on their own the following spring. Here is where patience becomes the central practice of this grow. American ginseng grows slowly. In its first year, it produces a single set of 3 leaves. In its second year, it sends up 2 prongs. In its third year, 3 prongs. A root harvested at 3 years is beginning to develop medicinal potency. A root harvested at 5 to 6 years commands extraordinary value in the herbal market and possesses the full complement of bioactive ginsenosides that clinical research has validated. This is the most critical placement instruction on this entire list. American ginseng must be grown in deep, dappled shade, never direct sunlight. It is a woodland understory plant that has evolved over millennia beneath the canopy of hardwood forests. A north-facing porch, the shaded side of a house, or the dappled shade beneath a large tree or patio umbrella is exactly what this plant needs. Direct sun for more than 1 hour per day will scorch the leaves and permanently damage the root. Water sparingly and thoughtfully. The soil should stay consistently moist but never wet. Deep, infrequent watering that allows the top inch of soil to dry slightly between sessions mimics the forest floor moisture cycle that ginseng has evolved to expect. Overwatering causes immediate catastrophic root rot. Apply no fertilizer in the conventional sense. Top-dress the container twice a year, once in early spring and once in early fall, with a half-inch layer of pure, aged hardwood leaf compost. Let the biology of that compost slowly feed the root the way a living forest floor would. The harvest, if you choose to harvest at all, arrives in year 5 or year 6, in late autumn after the leaves have gone yellow and dropped naturally. Carefully tip the container and work the root free from the soil with your hands. The mature root is a dense, forked, aromatic, honey-colored taproot that bears the characteristic marks of age, horizontal wrinkles called growth scars, 1 per year, that function as a natural verification of the root's age and maturity. Slice the fresh root paper thin and steep it in hot water for 15 minutes for a subtly sweet, slightly bitter tea with an earthy, deeply complex aroma unlike anything else in the plant kingdom. Or thinly slice it into a honey and lemon tonic and sip it slowly in the morning. A major systematic review published in the Journal of Ginseng Research, the field's primary peer-reviewed scientific publication, synthesized over 500 individual clinical and laboratory studies and confirmed that the ginsenoside compounds concentrated in mature American ginseng root demonstrate measurable adaptogenic effects, statistically significant improvements in cognitive function and working memory, meaningful reductions in physical and psychological stress responses, and promising immunomodulatory properties under rigorous controlled trial conditions. Here is a fascinating fact, and it is the most remarkable one on this entire list. American ginseng is not merely a valuable plant. It is a federally protected species. because wild harvested American ginseng was so relentlessly over-collected from Appalachian forests throughout the 18th and 19th centuries for export to Asian markets, where it commanded prices rivaling precious metals. The United States government now regulates its harvest and trade under CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Legal wild harvest requires a state permit. Legal export requires federal certification. The wild root is so valuable that illegal ginseng poaching, called seng theft, remains an active prosecuted federal crime in national parks across the eastern United States to this day. Growing your own in a container does not just give you access to one of the most pharmacologically complex and historically significant roots in the world. It makes you a participant in the conservation of a botanical treasure that shaped the economies of continents and fueled trade between civilizations. And that wraps up our complete list of the 15 best root vegetables you can grow in containers. No garden required, no acre of farmland, no tiller, no raised bed. Just a pot, the right mix, the right technique, and the patience to do it properly. I want to know, which one of these is going in a container on your patio this season? Is it the fast-firing radish, the slow-burning ginseng, the explosive sweet potato? Drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one, and I respond to as many as I possibly can. If you learned something today that genuinely surprised you, and I hope at least one of those fascinating facts made your jaw drop, do me a favor and hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds and it means the world to this channel. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover real, deep, practical container and backyard gardening. No filler, no fluff, just the science, the technique, and the results. I will see you in the next one.